You think rings are just for decoration or proposals? There was a type of ring that could be opened to deliver a deadly dose in seconds. And the frightening part is, it wasn't just legend. It was linked to real assassination plots in history. A ring is supposed to mean devotion, a promise, a memory you can wear. But imagine this. You lean in for a kiss, raise your hand to adjust someone's collar, and your ring, your beautiful, ordinary ring, becomes the last thing they ever see. Because it isn't just jewelry. It has a secret compartment, a tiny hinge, a hidden lid, a space so small you'd never notice unless you knew where to press. And inside, it holds something that turns intimacy into assassination. This is the story of the poison ring, one of history's most chilling everyday objects. Not a sword, not a gun. Something that blends into a ballroom, a courtroom, a chapel, something that can pass through a crowd without raising a single alarm. And it forces us to ask a brutal question. How many murders in the past were designed to look like nothing at all? To understand why a poison ring even makes sense, you have to step into the paranoia of earlier centuries. For much of European history, especially in royal courts, poison wasn't a rare horror. It was a fear that lived in the air. Food could be poisoned. Wine could be poisoned. A cosmetic cream, a perfume, even a medicine could be poisoned. People didn't need evidence, they needed suspicion. Because courts were ecosystems built on betrayal, marriages that were treaties, friendships that were temporary, and power that could change hands overnight. If you couldn't defeat someone on a battlefield, you could defeat them at dinner. And in a world like that, the most terrifying weapon is the one nobody notices: a ring. Rings were everywhere. Signet rings for sealing letters, decorative rings for wealth, devotional rings for faith, mourning rings for grief. They were personal, intimate, always close to the body. And that is exactly what made them perfect. Not every poison ring was the same, but the concept was simple. A hollow space under the gemstone or inside the band. A lid that flips open. A compartment meant to hold something tiny. A powder, a crumb of resin, a fragment of plant matter, sometimes just enough to coat the tip of a needle. Some were built as lockets, like a miniature secret box. Others were disguised so well that the join line vanished into decorative engraving. And here's where the story gets darker. A poison ring doesn't have to deliver poison directly into someone's mouth. It only has to bring poison into contact with you at the right moment. Because you can poison a cup by dipping a fingertip. You can poison food by helpfully sprinkling seasoning. You can poison a wound, one small scratch, by touching it like you're offering comfort. That's why poison rings became a perfect object for the kind of violence that hides behind manners. This is where myth and reality mix, so we need to be careful. Stories about poison rings are everywhere, especially about famous families and infamous courts. But not every story is proven. Still, there are poisons and toxic substances historically known that could work in very small quantities. Plant-based toxins, mineral toxins, and prepared compounds. Some acted slowly, mimicking illness. Others could cause violent symptoms that looked like natural collapse. And when people didn't understand germ theory or modern pathology, death could be blamed on anything. Bad air, weak humors, fever, God's will. Poison didn't need to be perfect, it just needed to be plausible. That's what made it powerful. In fact, the fear of poison became so widespread that it shaped behavior. Royal tasters, elaborate kitchen controls, sealed dishes, suspicion of servants, suspicion of foreign visitors, suspicion of everyone. The more paranoia grew, the more attractive discreet delivery methods became. And a ring, silent, invisible, always at hand, was the ultimate discreet method. If you've ever heard the name Borgia, you've probably heard poison stories too. The Borgias became a symbol of Renaissance corruption in popular imagination. Secret murders, political plots, poison disguised as perfume or communion wine. And poison rings often appear in that same storytelling universe. But here's the twist. legends can be louder than evidence. The truth is that Renaissance Italy absolutely had political violence and assassination plots. Poison was feared. Rumors were currency. But the most famous poison ring stories tied to specific figures often come from later retellings, propaganda, or sensational writing. That doesn't mean poison rings weren't real. It means the object is older and broader than any one family. Poison rings didn't belong to one villain. They belonged to a system, a world where power felt so fragile that a hidden compartment in a ring suddenly seemed rational. Here's the part that makes this story land differently. Poison rings are not just literature. There are rings in museum collections and antique catalogs described as rings with hidden compartments. Rings designed to conceal small items, sometimes labeled as poison rings, sometimes as reliquary rings, locket rings, or secret compartment rings. Because the feature, hiding something, has many possible uses: a lock of hair from a lover, a relic from a saint, a pinch of perfume, a secret message, a tiny portrait, or yes, something lethal. The compartment itself is the key. The intention can be denied. And that's exactly the genius of the object. If you're caught, you can claim it's sentimental. If you're accused, you can claim it's devotional. A ring like that can be innocent, until it isn't. A sword is obvious. A dagger is suspicious. A pistol changes how people look at you. But a ring? A ring is intimate. You show it to people. You let them touch your hand. It becomes part of your identity. Which means a poison ring carries a special kind of fear. It turns something personal into something predatory. It weaponizes trust. And it forces a grim truth about historical power. In many eras, the most dangerous person wasn't the one who looked violent. It was the one who looked safe. There's another side to poison rings that is even more unsettling. Some stories claim poison rings were used not to murder others, but to kill the wearer. An emergency exit if captured. A hidden dose. A last resort. Again, we have to separate romance from reality. But the idea itself fits the mindset of espionage and political conflict. Rather than be tortured, rather than reveal secrets, the ring becomes control over your own ending. And that is a different kind of horror. Because it means the ring isn't just a weapon, it's a decision. The smallest door in the world hiding the biggest one. Even if poison rings were not widespread weapons, the rumor of them was extremely useful. Think about what a poison ring rumor does. It makes everyone paranoid. It makes every handshake suspicious. It makes every elegant gesture potentially lethal. Rumors don't need proof to work. They only need to be believable. And in courts where people died suddenly all the time due to disease, infection, bad water, untreated wounds, poison rumors were endlessly plausible. A ring was the ideal rumor vehicle because it's always present, always visible, and always impossible to truly inspect without permission. It hides in plain sight. Today, if you search for poison rings, you'll find modern novelty rings sold online with secret compartments. Some are marketed as stash rings, others as locket rings. Some lean into the dark mythology. The mechanism survived, the intention shifted. We're not living in Renaissance courts, at least not officially, but the fascination remains. Because the ring represents a universal fear, that danger doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it looks like jewelry. So the next time you see a ring with an oversized stone, or a design with an odd seam, or a setting that looks just a little too thick, you'll wonder, is it sentimental? Is it sacred? Is it a secret? Or is it a weapon disguised as a promise? And maybe the scariest part isn't whether poison rings were common, it's that they were possible at all. Because once an object like that exists, even once, it changes how you see history. Not as a story of battles and crowns, but as a story of tiny decisions made inches from someone's skin. A hidden hinge, a quiet click, and a secret you never see coming.